So, before last weekend's NASCAR Cup Series race in Mexico City, Carson Hocevar made some controversial comments during his live stream on Twitch. Now, Hocevar went on a mini rant about the frustrations surrounding the Mexico City race. He said the whole experience would have been better if it was easier to travel there and felt safe getting from point A to point B. But he really raised some eyebrows when he referred to Mexico City as a S-hole in the stream, which has now been deleted. To show his complete lack of awareness, Total Play was the sponsor of his number 77 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet for Mexico City. Now, for those of you who don't know what Total Play is, they're the leading telecommunications provider in Mexico. And guess where their headquarters are based? Inside Mexico City, the same city that Hocevar called a S-hole. Graphic courtesy there of Spire Motorsports. Now, a few hours after the Viva Mexico 250 ended, Hocevar posted this statement on social media. Maybe a kid that had never been out of the country until Thursday should ever give an opinion on what any place is like other than Portage in Michigan. When I answered that question on a stream, I was skeptical about the trip so far and believed everything I read or heard about Mexico City from people who more than likely also never have been here. Now that I've actually left my hotel a couple of times and raced here in front of some of the most passionate fans I've ever seen, my opinion has changed. I am embarrassed by my comments, by the race I ran, and I may have to move here to hide out from Ricky anyway. Count this as another lesson for me. In a season, I've learned so much. Don't believe everything you hear without seeing yourself. If anyone should give anyone or any place the benefit of the doubt, it's me. I'm sorry, Mexico City. Consider me an ally going forward and an example of getting off Twitch and seeing things with my own two eyes. Then, yesterday evening, Spire Motorsports revealed that they decided to discipline Hocevar internally for his actions. The team fined its driver $50,000, which will be donated equally to three organizations that serve Mexican communities. First, the Mexican Red Cross, an organization providing humanitarian and medical relief aid across Mexico. The second, which is translated into 1 kilo of help, a non-profit combating childhood malnutrition and supporting early childhood development in rural communities. The third and final organization is United Way Mexico, which funds local NGOs that improve education, health, and housing in 22 Mexican states. However, Hocevar is also being required to do cultural sensitivity and bias awareness training as well. Now, Spire say their core value is respect, and they expect their employees to walk the walk in how they speak, compete, and serve communities that welcome NASCAR. The team believed that Hocevar's comments failed to meet that standard. Spire informed NASCAR of the decision to handle the Hocevar controversy themselves, as they remain committed to showcasing NASCAR's global growth and celebrating the passionate Mexican fan base we saw in the inaugural trip to Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Now, shortly after Spire issued the penalty, Hocevar responded to it on social media. Whoa, everybody, the truth is the truth. I said something that not only was wrong, I said it without even laying my own two eyes on CDMX or turning one lap in an actual race at an amazing facility that welcomed me with open arms. And I go and say that. Thank you for all the support, but I'm not sure we're on the same page. You guys want me to be. It was me who said it, and it was me who apologized after actually taking the time to explore the city and feel the passion of every fan in attendance. I appreciate the opportunity to learn, and I knew before this weekend what respect means to this organization, and I didn't meet the standard, so I got what I deserved. I hate learning these lessons in the public eye and bringing any negative attention to Spire or me. We've been fast just about every week, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of mistakes left in me. I appreciate growing up in front of you all, and you guys get to see the good and bad. I'm just me. I'm trying. It just doesn't always go the way I want, and I bring a lot of this on myself. However, I love being in this garage with this team surrounded by the best drivers and the best fans in the world. See you in Pocono. Well, Matt, how bad did it look for Carson Hocevar to refer to Mexico City as an S-hole while a Mexico City-based company was sponsoring his car? And did Spire Motorsport take the right step to address this controversy?
Well, good evening, Josh. Good evening, Kobe. Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's all a bit messy, isn't it, this? For poor old Carson, who's got caught in the middle of the S-storm himself with this one. I think you take a step back from him at the moment and you just take the kind of global view. If you've never been to somewhere and you have a view that is put upon you by television, streaming services, the internet, social media, and it doesn't take your fancy, I've got flies buzzing in front of my face, it doesn't take your fancy, then perhaps you are going to have a negative view and perhaps have a negative comment about it, which is clearly what Carson has done. And, you know, as he said in the first statement there, you know, he's, apart from going to racetracks all his life, he's lived in his hometown at Portage, Michigan, there in that top line. So maybe, you know, the worldly view, and I'll come to this one perhaps when we get to hots and knots about this race later on, is a thing. But he's come out and he's done a kind of double apology on this, double down on his apology, perhaps, you know, having the comment with Mexican sponsors on the car in Mexico for the Mexican race was not wise, with Total Play there on the car. But yeah, not a good look for Carson. We've talked a lot about him in the last few weeks, really, about his speed on the racetrack and in that playoff bubble contention. You're going to get on to the second part of why that now might not happen in a moment, but they've hit him with the, let's face it, peanuts monetary fine. They had to show willing, I guess, and to do something. And let's hope, as he said in his second part of that statement there, Carson, that he can grow from this and push on forward. And hopefully after a bit of a tricky weekend on track, he can get things back on the straight and narrow again at Pocono this week. But, as you're about to get onto, Josh, might not have it all his own way.
No, and as Chuck says, golly old shucks routine again, tired of it all and don't buy it. Yeah, well, unfortunately for us, far, there's negative storylines as well done in there. We'll go into that in a second. You say, Denver says, Carson is not making any friends on or off the track. I think smart by Spire to find him is now also being be smart by Ricky to wreck him in the next a few weeks as well. Yes, I'm glad Carson Hocevar made an apology about what happened as well. So, unfortunately, as I said, for Hocevar, the negative storylines don't end there. For the second time in the last 3 races, he had an on-track incident with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, in the stadium section, he spun out Stenhouse, and to make matters worse, Hocevar wasn't even on the lead lap. Stenhouse exited his car furious and quickly approached Hocevar, who was still sitting in his car after the race. Now, according to Jordan Bianchi from The Athletic, when asked what he told Hocevar, Stenhouse said that he was going to beat Hocevar's you-know-what once they returned to the United States. Stenhouse has clearly had enough of Hocevar after the two drivers initially made contact during the race at Nashville a few weeks ago. Now, it seemed like things were good between them because they talked after Hocevar wrecked Stenhouse in Mexico City, and we even saw them talking and smiling during driver injuries at Michigan. Now, the second incident in 3 weeks with Stenhouse on the losing end of it, whatever progress was made in the phone call after Nashville appears to be gone. So, Matt, are you convinced that Stenhouse will retaliate, and is it time for someone in the Cup Series garage to finally teach Hocevar a lesson?
Take him behind the woodshed. He was never going to do it, was he, Ricky? Because who knows what could have happened if he'd done something at the weekend. He might not be racing this weekend because he might be in a Mexico City jail for all he might know for doing something on pit lane or in the paddock area or whatever after the race last week. We don't know. Well, I don't know unless it's been come up on it. I haven't seen it on social media this week. But if you just take what we saw on the race coverage on Sunday of the replays of the incident, Carson kind of drove into Ricky in the left-hander there in the middle of the stadium and kind of sheepishly parked at the side of the racetrack as if to wait for Stenhouse to continue before before he carried on. I was like, if I get in front of him, he's probably going to catch me up and run into me. So I'll stay back and wait for whatever to happen. But it didn't. I mean, be aware in race control, I guess, on Sunday if Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Carson Hocevar get together at 200 mile an hour plus Pocono. I mean, we've seen some big accidents in turn one in the past, haven't we, with single car incidents. With the Austin Dillon one a couple of years ago, we ended up throwing his helmet at someone. I think that was Stenhouse, wasn't it? A couple of years back in turn one after he got wrecked down there. Not the place that you want to go around wrecking people. One of the fastest tracks on the calendar. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let's hope, but I'm sure they will at some point, that Amazon will go, oh, here we go. They're next to each other on the racetrack at some point, and they're going to build it up, and they're going to run into each other, and then nothing will happen, which is generally what happens in these kind of situations. I think it will probably come, whether it's this weekend or at Bristol in a few weeks on the short track or somewhere. But Stenhouse, as we know from the Kyle Busch incident at the All-Star race last year, don't want to get on the wrong side of him. He will be waiting by your trailer at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was kind of glad actually when I was watching that, very tired before I took over in the IndyCar race, that there wasn't a fight, because I keep getting promised one and I've never won the call at the right time. Now, Matthew, who was on the call, and you were there too.
Sorry. Yeah, we were on the call. Kobe reminds us in the background, it was Tyler Reddick that Austin Dillon threw his helmet out a couple of weeks ago at Pocono, not Stenhouse.
Matthew says, Carson has so much talent, he obviously can win. Now he has to learn how to win and how to be a good representation of the sport and a future star.
We've seen this, haven't we? Not just in NASCAR, with young talent in other formulas that they got themselves into trouble from time to time, and then they've straightened themselves out, and then, they've been good guys. So let's hope Carson can go down that path as well. Chicago or Sonoma is the Carson graveyard, says Denver. Well,
Chicago, probably. Yeah, that could be a lot of fun, though, to be fair. We've got Pocono coming up next. That could still be something as well. Let's not forget that. I swear to God, if it happens at Pocono, I'm going to be furious because I'm not in the box for that.